What's up, everybody? It's your friend Isaac from Big Bike BMX, and I've been running through a couple of series of like my personal bike checks, just because it's, you know, people ask me a lot about like, oh, what bikes you have, and I noticed that a lot of people like looking at bikes just as much as I do, even if they're not my personal bike. I love looking at bikes. So I've ran through all my bikes at this point, and we're down to the last one. And this one has a really cool story behind it. This is my Haro Master, my 20, I guess it would technically be a 2020 Haro Master Legends DMC. Now, this bike, we interviewed on the show John Bulgins, who's the brand manager for Haro Bikes. And I told him my story of like, oh dude, it's what got me into big bikes, was looking for an original, the 2019, the fluorescent green Haro Master. When I saw they made it in the 26, I was like, dude, that's what I want. Looked everywhere, couldn't find one. They were sold out everywhere. And so I ended up going with a Big Ripper, fell in love with the Big Ripper and SE, and what they're doing. And so gave up on having a Haro. And John's like, hey, I have the sample bike for the new one in my office. I was gonna give it to DMC, but he already has one from last year, whatever. You know, I'll you know, cover the cost and I'll send it to you. I'll give it to you. So, not give. I'll load it to you. How's that? Because nobody gets free bikes, not even John, who's the brand manager of Haro. So I was like, dude, yes, of course. I'd like, who would say no to that, right? So here's the bike. This is the Haro Master DMC. Now, this bike is really cool. It's a 26-inch. Let me see the camera. This one is a 26-inch. Here, let's go. I'll start on this side. A 26-inch frame. It has the double top tube, just like we grew up with. It has the Haro DMC seat. It's got, here's some things I've changed. I have added rear pegs. I've changed out the brake pads to these, the Cool Stop BMX pads. Everything else down here is stock. I did add a front brake with a POTS mod, and I'll show you that in a minute. The other thing I did was change the handlebars to the kneesaver bars, because this is what I grew up with. I love these bars. I had on my original Haro Master, I ran the GT Freestyle bars, but then these came out later on and loved them. And when I actually owned this in the 20-inch model, and I had these bars, then I had the Peregrine, and then I moved on to an Ozone. This was the second to last freestyle bike I ever had, but I love it. So, and I added some front pegs. These are thread-on, old school aluminum pegs that you just thread on like it was a bolt. Those are the traditional pegs that you normally see. But everything else is stock stem. And then I did add this because my wife likes to ride this bike. She thinks it's super comfortable for ride outs. So this is where she puts her phone, and she can track her miles and make sure everything's good. And so I did change the grips to these ODI long necks, which you'll see on every single one of my bikes, because these are my favorite grips. But the Haro grips are great. They're black, and then the bars that come with this are this color green, this teal here. They look great, and they are typically, they're up here. It looks like the old school freestyle bars with the more swoop and a rounded bottom. I just like the taller bars because that's what I'm used to. So I'll show you the mod real quick. So you got a front brake lever, goes down. It does come stock with a POTS mod here. And then what I did, ran the cable down through the center tube, comes out the bottom, and then there are no 990 mounts on this bike. So this silver, oh, here we go. This silver plate here is called a boomerang from Diacomp, a Diacomp boomerang plate. It bolts, and then I zip tie it. This is what we did in the 80s when this first came out, before any forks had the 990 mounts. You would bolt this through, but if you just had this bolt, the minute you lock these up, the stress goes forward and this will snap. So then you just zip tie the plate to your forks, which then gives a little bit more strength, even though it's plastic. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 of them on here. And then you got the 990 on the front, which gives you the front brake. And then I'm also running the Cool Stop BMX pads here. And this essentially turns into a 26-inch Flatland bike. So my thoughts on this bike, coming a little bit, but show a little bit of the bike too if you can. So my thoughts on this bike, it's very comfortable. It is very worth the price. I think they're about $649, $650 at places like Planet BMX, Flatland Fuel. You can still pick them up. They're sold out in most places, but I have seen them there recently. Great riding bikes. You can see me on the How to Ride Wheelies with Matt Rickard. This is the bike that I was riding. Tail whips, really great. They have an upgraded model of this that runs, I want to say it's like 1500. So when you look at Haro, they have the Legends, which is this base, and then they have the Lineage, which is like $1,400. The $1,400 bikes are awesome. It literally has a gyro, and they go all out. It's top of the line parts. This one is more entry level, which is great for me. Craig actually owns one of the Lineage Haro Zoltone Masters with the bash guard, and so it's a great thing what Haro's doing, which is capturing people like me, our love of growing up with Haro, and giving us a bike that looks like the bike we rode as a kid, only in a size that's comfortable for us to ride now. I know these are real popular all over, like LA, San Diego. A lot of people are riding them. There's a lot of there's Haro fans everywhere. Everyone loves Haro. So they're great bikes. The quality on the components, even on this entry level one, is solid. I haven't had any problems with it. My cranks will creak every once in a while. My bottom bracket crank area. I took it apart, I re-grease it, and then everything's fine. As far as like the metal on metal parts, like the spindle and the crank arms, and it could even just be the pedals that are squeaking when I ride it. But honestly, like, that's not a big deal, you know, especially, it's not like a mechanical failure. It's just the way bikes are. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you gotta have, if it squeaks, it's a cheap part. Man, my bike, when I grew up, made all kinds of crazy noises, and we rode the shit out of those bikes. So you know, it's kind of up to you to figure out what you think is acceptable, but I think these bikes are phenomenal, especially at $649. You can't beat it. This will get you out on the ride outs, riding a bike that you used to ride when you were a kid, possibly. They don't make a 29 of the Haro Masters yet. I hope one day soon that John sees like the popularity in this and can find a way to actually make it work with the components and the upsizing. I know Haro's tried it a couple times. There are 5 of the fluorescent green Haro Masters that are 29-inch floating around that were prototypes, but they're all spoken for. People are riding them. Beautiful bikes. But this is mine. This is the sample bike. So the history that makes this a little bit fun is that if you look up 26 Legend Haro Master and you see this teal bike, pictures of it online, there's pictures of like back here and the head tube and all this stuff. When you see those pictures, it's this bike. This is a sample bike that they use to do all the photography for the catalog and for the website and all that stuff. So if you see pictures of a bike from Haro, this is the actual physical bike, which makes it a little bit more special to a lot of people. There's no, on the bottom bracket down here, there's no serial number on the bottom bracket down here. It's way underneath. So there's a model number that goes across here, but usually on the cup it'll have a serial number. This bike does not have a serial number at all. So that's how you know it's a sample. But I know people will freak out because now I have taken a collector bike and swapped out the bars, put these brakes. I'm actually riding it instead of hanging it on a wall. But I'm a guy that believes BMX bikes should be ridden. I told John I was going to ride it. I'm not in this for collecting and for resale value. I'm in it for reliving great times I've had on Haro bikes. Just my opinion. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions about a Haro Master, drop them in the comments below. I will tell you how much I love these things. I think they're great bikes. I would definitely recommend, if you are a Haro fan and you grew up with a Haro Master, you will not be disappointed riding one of these down the road. I do recommend grabbing these bigger bars, but that's just, I think bigger bars are better on all of the 26, 29 inch bikes, because it gives them a more BMX feel versus a cruiser BMX feel. It gives it more of a big BMX versus that bent over cruiser feel. So thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Have fun. Go ride your bikes, even if they're collector special bikes, man. They're made to be ridden. Have fun with them, and we'll see you in the comments. Take care.